this nice olive. I just repotted it. And to be honest, it was a struggle. It was hard to get it back into the pot, and I ended up using a screwdriver to screw the plant into the pot to make sure it doesn't fall over. Do you want to see what I did? Watch the video. Meanwhile, I'm going to make myself a cup of tea. I'm done with this tree for now. So I think it should be stable, but it might still fall out if I lift it. Lucky me. Let's take a look what this looks like. It has a very interesting shape, nice curvature, a lot of dead wood and a few living branches. It came to me last fall and it was very weak. The leaves were falling off and the original owner actually did not really want to sell it to me because he was worried it was going to die. So when I got it in October, I straight away replanted it in an open course substrate, my preferred substrate for all my plants, and I just put it in the greenhouse. Over winter it's been in the greenhouse and now I think it's time to take a look at the roots. At the time of repotting in fall there were hardly any roots on it. This is why it is in such an odd position. I tried to get as many of the roots that were there in the soil. Let's get to it. I'll take it out of the pot, look at the roots, decide a new angle, and then we'll see where we go from there. These little wooden bars on the side of the trunk were placed there to make sure the roots and the trunk are kept in place. For the repotting, of course, I need to take them out. Maybe when I replant the whole thing in the pot, I will need them later on to again stabilize the trunk. This is one of the tricks that you can use if you have very few roots to make sure the tree doesn't topple over after planting. As I am concerned, there's only very few roots. I need to be quite careful taking it out. I'm going to move the tree and the pot at the same time, tilting it to gently shake the substrate out, hoping that I break no roots in the process. So you can see the growth of the roots over winter has been extremely good. There is a whole bunch of new roots on this side, which is connected of course straight away to the live part of the trunk. This whole section of the trunk is dead. This part of the trunk is dead and there's only a live section going up here. So if you look at this olive tree, as indicated before, only a very small part of the trunk is alive. Only this small segment of the trunk is alive. For good bonsai, it is a good idea to try to show the part that is alive where it hits the ground in the final planting. That would dictate that this will be part of the front. And we can rotate it all the way this way, or we can rotate it more this way. I prefer to have the trunk come towards me at the top. So I'm probably going to aim for something like this. What you then get is a nice movement into the live section here up top and the trunk curving back at you. And later on I can work with the foliage in the back and bring it forward so that the crown engulfs this dead part from the back. So this is probably the way that I'm going to plant it up. Let me give it a try and see how that goes. Normally I would also be cleaning up the roots quite a bit. but considering this tree is quite weak, I am not going to do anything on the roots this time around. Next time, when I'm repotting it again, I will work on the roots. What you can see, however, is that although on top there's a very small live vein, below ground you see that the live section actually stretches quite far into this end. This is quite useful because later on I want to be able to tie the tree down, and this can help there because now I have strong roots that are growing from this end on which I can tie the tree down, as well as roots on the other side where I can tie the tree down.
Do you want to know how this tree develops? Subscribe to the channel, then you get an update. Click like.
I'm using fairly heavy wire here. Normally I would use lighter wire to tie trees into the pot, but considering this plant has few roots and with a very long gin it is also top heavy, I use 2 wires. What I do, I wire the 2 very heavy wires, I twist them together. This way, once they're under the pot, they hold together and I can use all 4 ends to tie the tree into the pot where I need it. You may notice I'm using the pot as it was before. I don't see a need at this point to really do a lot of work on the pot, and I'm also going to use exactly the same substrate that I was using before. The plant has only been in it for a couple of months. It's been in a greenhouse, so for now I'm just going to wire the tree into the pot, use the same substrate as it was beforehand. So now we get to the fiddly part. This is the most difficult part from planting a tree like this. You need to get the plant in the pot. It needs to be stable, but at the same time you also want to put the tree in a position that it's realistic working towards the future. This doesn't always work, so we'll have to see how that goes. As said before, we want the living part to be visible in the front, we want curvature, and we want the dead part to lean toward us. At this point the trunk on this end is too deep, so I need to remove substrate so it can sit deeper. Taking care to also make space for the roots that are in place. I don't want to break these nice roots on this side. What you can now see, if I position it like this, these roots are at risk of coming out of the surface and be visible and dry out. So I need to make sure the left side is as deep in the pot as possible, which it is, and then this decides the tilt that it can have on the trunk right now. Maybe in a year or 2 years time the roots will have formed lower as well and I can cut the top roots off, but for now I need to keep them in place. Making sure the wires that I'm using are not going to break off the roots that are in place. I now need to find a way of wiring in the plant without it tippling over later on. So this one is in place. And this one will hold it down on this side with a gentle twist. The big problem is this one on this side. There is some dead wood in the back which you can't see, but I can, and I'm going to use that as a connection point if I can. I don't think this will work, so I need to find a solution. The solution I found lies in using the pieces of wood that I was using before as well. By placing a piece of wood here on the left side of the trunk, I stop the tree from tilting in this direction. I've moved one of the wires in the back behind the piece of wood, so I can actually, instead of just tying the tree down, I move my wire over the dead wood in the back, and I use that to connect the wire, to connect the wood with this little stabilizing wood. It's not ideal. I'm not happy about this at all. Fortunately, there are other solutions to fix a tree in a pot, and that is using screws. Especially if you have a living trunk, but also if you have a dead trunk, you can put a screw in the trunk and on that tie the tree down. So slip the wire around the screw head, and that way keep this side of the trunk down into the pot. Then I can go around the old dead wood and tie it down on the back of the trunk. That way it should hold this part in place as well. As said before, it's absolutely not ideal how this is fixed, and I'll need to stabilize it a little bit more. With the trunk wired on one side with a screw and on the other side with a normal wiring, the sidewards motion is pretty much gone. However, it can still tilt forward and backward. The way I intend to fix this is by using a piece of wood. So I've already filled up the substrate quite substantially here on the front, and now I can place this small wooden block in front. This will reduce the tilt that the tree has towards the front, and this way it can't fall forward. I'll do the same thing in the back of the trunk. I'll put a wooden block there, and then hopefully the tree is fixed enough that it won't tilt, fall or to flip over. Of course, this wooden block here doesn't look very good. At this stage of development for this tree, it is not important whether it looks good. The main thing now is to make sure that the trunk is stable in the pot, that the roots have a chance to grow, and the tree gets back to full health, so that later in summer we can maybe start styling some of this. So for now, this will remain, and in a year or 2 years, once the root has established itself, I'll take it out and I'll replant it in a new pot in the final position.